Hello and welcome to Business Nigeria. I am Tolu Lokpe Ogunjobi. Welcome. Well, Nigeria has huge demand for beef. Thank you for joining us. Nigeria has huge demand for beef, which does not match with domestic production. The Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development, Audu Ogbe, disclosed this at a meeting with members of the governing councils of Federal Universities of Agriculture in Abeokuta, Makurdi and Umodike. According to him, the country was consuming more cows per day than it was breeding, and warned it may not be long before the country runs out of beef supply. Describing the local cattle breed as about the least in the world, Ogbe appealed to the universities to rise up to the challenge by teaching people artificial insemination, saying their prompt response is key towards resolving this impending crisis. Now, Nigeria is a major hub of animal products consumption in West Africa. It is also one of the largest livestock raising countries in the region. Meeting the ever-increasing domestic demand and access to this flourishing market are major economic stakes for Nigeria and the neighboring Sahel countries that raise livestock. By its population and capacity for animal production, with 25% of livestock herds in the sub-region, Nigeria is by far the leading livestock producer in Central and West Africa. The country's cattle herds are estimated at more than 15 million heads, far ahead of Niger, 8.7 million, Mali 8.2 million, and Chad 7 million. The share of Sahel countries is significant, however, representing over 50% of total cattle herds. Cattle raising in Nigeria is largely supplemented by short-cycle livestock operations, estimated at 33.8 million heads of sheep and 175 million poultry birds. Between 85% and 90% of domestic cattle herds are tended by 8 million migratory shepherds and farm herders. It is very difficult to access inflows of live animals from Niger, Chad, or Mali, as many animals are neutralized when they cross the border. Demand for beef is largely driven by the Federal Republic of Nigeria. This is because Nigerians make up to 50% of beef consumers in ECOWAS sub-region. The strong rise in the demand for animal products is due not only to the high rates of urbanization, but consumers' greater purchasing power and the emergence of a middle class. This trade giant accounts for nearly 60% of international trade across the region. Well, to dig deep into this, I have with me in the studio an agriculturist, a practicing one, Prince Wale Oyekoya. Thank you very much for joining us on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Well, talking about beef production now and the Nigerian economy, a lot has been said, and looking at what we have, it's clear that we have to improve what we produce, because we cannot, the demand now is higher than what we have in the country, not to even talk of the animal protein, which we also need. Tell us, in your view, what is really the problem?
The problem we are having at our high is that we consume more than what we are producing. And America used to say, where's the beef? If you see most of the average Nigerians today, when they're eating, most of them doesn't really have a balanced diet of some of this meat. And you have to agree with me that meat consumption is one of the easiest protein that we can ever consume in this region. But it's very scarce and it's very expensive in the market right now. Just like you have rather said, yes, we are the largest producer and rearing of this cattle, but is it getting to the tables of average Nigerians? You have to understand that more than half of the beef we eat today are still being imported into the countries. And this one are really impeding production from people that are really rearing these cattle. And you have to really understand what the problem the herdsmen and the farmer, what we've been having. And this is why, through the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry and most of the farmers, we propose that there should be a ranching in animal production instead of roaming some of these cattle around, because by them roaming around, definitely they are losing some of this meat that is supposed to go for the consumptions. So ranching has been the only way out, and this is the only thing that can really solve most of the problem, either between the herdsmen and the farmers, and the herdsmen and the production we're having the beef today. Yeah, definitely we have so many sub-Saharan African nations that are really meeting with us. But at the same time, look at our population. We're increasing every day. We're not decreasing. We are more than 180 million population in this country, and look at what we are rearing, what we are producing. So it's not even enough for Lagos State alone, talk less of the whole of Nigeria.
Now, according to research now, the livestock census, which was conducted more than 2 years now, we have 19.5 million cattle, 72.5 million goats. In all of this, what worries me is that we have not even harnessed even the benefits of the livestock sector. Let's look at the compared to the poultry sector, which we've a little bit, we're getting more from that, looking at the eggs and all of that.
Yes.
What is impeding this achievement? Saudi Arabia does 4.7 million liters of milk, and Nigeria imports 1.3 billion, dollars worth of milk. This is...
It's very saddening, and to me, it's misplaced of priority on the terms of the government side, in the sense that even the little one that we are producing, that we are rearing, like 9-point-something million you are talking about, you have to understand that half of these cattle are still being imported, are still being exported out to the neighboring countries. And you have to understand that the people that are even rearing this cattle, they are not even Nigerian, they are Niger, Chad, and Camerooners. So you have to understand that some of these countries, they use our borders because we have the most better pastures to graze their cattle. So by the time they bring them to our borders, they take them back. So all this population or this number of cattle you are really giving to us, it's not really adequate, because most of them does not end up in the Nigerians' tables. So that's why you see that if you go to most of these big supermarkets, you see that most of the meat we eat today are being imported from neighboring country, maybe South Africa or all other nations, which is a very shame. We've been proposing that there should be a local content. We should be able to encourage our own, not a South African company still importing some of this beef into the Nigerian table. So these are the problems we keep on having, and by the time we keep on saying this, it's going to be a very big problem for us, because in the southwest, how many cattle are we really rearing? By the time we rear it, it still go back to the north, and they still bring it back to for us to be bought in a very high, expensive rate.
Looking at the move by this present administration, talking about diversification, we all know agriculture is the way to go. And when elders tell us about the granite pyramids and all of that we used to have, and you now see what we have now, it's a contrast, sure. But let's look at government evolving policies now that will help really revitalize and reactivate this sector. Are we adding value to our agricultural produce? Lately, don't forget, we started exporting yams, and some people have picked holes in that. Are we really adding value with all of these policies?
I was one of the people that really picked on it, because we're supposed to be adding value to some of our farm produce. As I said earlier on in the previous interviews, I said that we don't want agriculture to be like the oil and gas, where we just ship out some of the crude, then they refine it and come and resell it. The same thing they are still doing with some of our agri produce, because if you look at yam that we are talking about, I totally disagree with the Minister for Agriculture that, listen, we could add more value and make more money and employ some of our youth than to be exporting some of our jobs to the other countries, because there are so many things that could be done. Even the cashew we are talking about, what about the juice that we are getting from the flesh? We are just talking about cashew nuts. We are not even talking about the fruit that is very hygienic and at the same time very robust when it comes in terms of hygiene stuff. So are we really adding value? No, we are not adding value. I proposed and I suggested to the federal government there should be a reformed value chain department in the Ministry of Agriculture. Because if we can be able to have that, then they should be able to think on how we can add value to some of our farm produce. Not only animals. What about the livestock? I mean, what about the crops? Even the maize, you can add value to it instead of just producing and at the same time give it to consume it raw, instead of us to add value to it in order for. So there are so many things we could do through the value chain, but we are not really harnessing on it, and there's so many money we are losing through the value chain.
Let's take a break now. We're going to take a break now. I'll still be having Prince Oyekoya here, and we'll be talking more about issues surrounding beef production in Nigeria. Of course, it dovetails into agricultural produce and, you know, all the moves by the government and also by us to help improve agriculture, farming all around the country. Stay with us on the show. It's still Business Nigeria. We'll be right back. Thank you for staying with us on the show. Now, I've been talking to an agriculturist, Prince Wale Oyekoya, who's been giving his views with regards to beef production in Nigeria and, of course, the agricultural sector in totality. Now, something came in my mind as we went on that break. The issue of, you know, we keep blaming government and all of that. Yes, government has not done enough with the statistics and all that we have on ground. But what about the machinery and technical expertise? Do we really have these two on ground?
We don't have it. Not that we keep on hammering the government, both the state and the federal government, because you have to understand that what the private sector really need is conducive environment. Well, what do I mean by conducive environment? By providing infrastructure. It's the job of the environment. Well, what do I mean by conducive environment? By providing infrastructure. It's the job of the government, either by the state or the federal government, because we are talking about adding value to some of our beef. How are you going to preserve it? Is it not through electricity? Look at the kind of electricity we are having today. Now, if you take the risk, because I used to process chicken before, I took it from my farm, I processed it, but the electricity really get me under, because by the time you are spending about 500 to 600,000 per month on electricity, how much am I going to make in the process of this chicken? So the same thing with the beef. Even if we started to slaughter some of these cattle, where are we going to store them? With this epileptic electricity that we are having, where we don't have power. So these are the kind of infrastructure we are telling the government to provide, like providing good roads, security, electricity, even the water. I was still hearing from the news where they are talking about water. You need water to really wash some of these things. So you'll be surprised if you go to abattoirs, the kind of water they're using to wash this beef. It's nothing to write home. So this is how we have this entry. This is how we have so many problems of typhoid, malaria. These are the man-made problems that we're creating for ourselves. So the government really need to do a lot. If it is just electricity that the federal government are going to tackle, believe me honestly, a lot of businesses will come in, a lot of investors will come in, and agriculture will be able to go to the next level by value chain.
Agriculture really needs to get to the next level. Now, investing in animal genetics is also one important thing. And you mentioned abattoirs. I was going there too. We need to modernize our abattoirs too.
Definitely.
How do we achieve all of this feat? How can we get it?
To me, they are putting wrong people in the right position. They are not putting the right people that really know what they are doing, that really have passion for some of these things. You have to understand that most of the appointment we are having today is through the political appointment, just as a compensation. Oh, you campaign for us, you are able to bring some people to us, you are able to give us some money. And I believe Nigerians of today have to go beyond that. We have so many youths out there. If I'm going to have my own opinion, to me, the Minister of Agric need to go and retire and go and rest and put somebody that is very vibrant, that will be able to go to the farm and do this thing.
Well, that is your opinion.
That is my own opinion.
I've been seeing him doing lots and lots.
I'm not saying he's not doing much, but if you put a very young person there, believe me honestly, he'll be able to do more. I'm not saying the man is not trying his possible with his age of over 70. But believe me honestly, when Akinwumi Adesina was there, you can see that this man was able to move with his age. I'm not condemning the man, but at least give some youth something to do in order for opportunities. Come on,
not too young to lead a bill and all of that. I know that there are lots of moves around that. What about subsistence farming? We need to improve what we do. At the time I knew you were conversing for people using even spaces around their houses to plant tomatoes, family farming and all of that. How far have we gone with improving our farming system in this country?
We have not really much improved, but a lot of people really wanted to go into this sector, but they don't know how. This is where the human capacity really have to be harnessed, because a lot of people, they do call me that, how do I do this, how do I do that? I believe the government should have an information centers. See, this regime, they are really lacking in terms of information, giving the right information to people. we should go beyond, that is not my party members, that is not from my state. We need to really get information out to the youths, especially now that they said that most of the School of Agriculture
they are partnering now with the federal government. So I wanted to, also bring you up to speed with that, because that is really a step in the right direction.
It's a step in the right direction, but at the same time, more information and at the same time, training some of our youth will go a long way on how to use some of these modern tools. And we really need to empower some of our polytechnics in order for them to fabricate some of this equipment that they are little equipment that could be used to in order to enhance our value chain. Because without all these modern tools, we'll keep on wasting our time. Because subsistence farming, how many of our youth are ready to take the hoe and the cutlass and go to the farm? And you have to understand that most of these subsistence farming, they are in the rural areas. Do they have infrastructure to even really improve on what they are doing, like the water, electricity, all kind of stuff? So we really need a lot of things to be done in order for us to really get there when they comes to agricultural sector. It's not just by the word of the mouth.
Almost finally, you talked about something very important, talking about ranching, and government also plans to, build some ranches, establish ranches that will be having high, improved tropical grass and all of that. Have we started seeing any of that? You are on the field.
Not yet, but some states are trying. Like Benue State, they just passed a law that there will be no more grazing. Ekiti State are trying to do it. If you come and kill my farmer, I will kill your cattle, I will kill you. So some states are really trying, but Lagos State, being the population area, they are trying their possible also to be arresting most of these cattle or goats that are roaming about. They are really doing that, and they need to do more, because if you go to some areas in Ikorodu, Ekpe, you see some of these cattle still grazing on people's land. These are going to cause conflicts. And at the same time, by the time you keep on roaming some of these cattle, they are losing fat, they are losing meat. The only thing you will get is bones. So ranching is the way out. If you go to most of the advanced countries we are talking about, there are ranches where they just feed this thing, they fatten them. By the time they slaughter them, you see some cow, they be more than they could be way up to 25 tons of cattle, because they've been fattened. So I think Nigeria needs to borrow from that instead of just grazing some of these cattle around.
And what's happening too with regards to irrigation in some of those major farms? The government has said they're doing this, they're doing that. But we need to really see these things, like you said, get to our table. What's the position with irrigation?
Well, with irrigation, I think irrigation is being done properly, a little bit properly in the north, not in the southwest. I always challenge the southwest governor that we really need to wake up and smell the coffee, because by the time the people in the north area strike on us, we are going to really go hungry. What is wrong with us? There's nothing they do in the north that we cannot do. We just have to get ourselves together. Now that the governors in the southwest are coming together to do meeting, maybe we can, in terms of economic, I hope they could go further and just bury their ego and get the right people in the right channel to do the right thing, so that everybody could go.
As we round up, I must touch rice demand on about 7 million tons. And what we are doing locally is about 3.5 million. And also fish, we have a great deficit in that. With all of these efforts, even the Lagos Kebbi thing, all this roams around agriculture, we still have rice, not really very cheap.
I said it from the beginning that Lagos State needs to stand on its own by processing its own rice, not by going to Kebbi. To me, the logistics was totally wrong from the beginning. But I think that they are realizing their mistake now. Now you can see our governor now going to go and partner with some other country to come and have our own rice mill in Lagos. At the same time, you don't just go and bring some of this heavy equipment. You need to really empower the farmers to really bring the materials, encourage them, give them hybrid rice to really plant, in order to really feed some of this equipment that our governor are trying to bring to Lagos State. But to me, it's a very bad marriage at the end of the day between the Kebbi and Lagos State.
Prince Wale Oyekoya, I must thank you very much for your time on the show today.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your thoughts with us.
You're welcome.
Well, away from the agricultural sector, the Central Bank of Nigeria has disclosed that it was closely monitoring the use of Naira-denominated cards for international transactions by bank customers. Now, this is happening as some banks adjust spending limits for their customers. The central bank said transaction monitoring was to ensure that gains recorded in the foreign exchange market was not lost. Some banks have restricted the monthly spending on Naira cards to only high net worth customers. Last year, many Nigerian banks suspended forex transactions on their Naira debit and credit cards. The Nigerian Customs Service has made a seizure of more than 5,000 cartons of frozen poultry products with a value of more than 20 million naira. Aside the poultry items, vehicles of assorted models and bags of rice were also intercepted and seized. The area controller of the Ogun State Command, Sani Madugu, showcased the seizures at Idiroko border area and noted that the command would not relent in its anti-smuggling war. Madugu explained that the seized products were loaded in 10 different vehicles, adding that the driver of the vehicles abandoned them and ran away after citing custom officials.
We have a total of 10 vehicles loaded with turkey products. Now 8 out of them are Volvo station wagon that carries more than 500 cartons of turkey in each of the vehicles. The war against smuggling is ongoing. We have been at the creeks, the unapproved routes. We are monitoring everywhere. Smuggled items will definitely be seized and forfeited to the federal government of Nigeria.
The United States Trade and Development Agency has signed a partnership deal with Eco Petroleum and Refining Company to set up a modular refinery in Lagos. A seed fund of $1 million is being worked out for the Nigerian firm, which proposes to refine 20,000 barrels of crude per day. The modular refinery project will be supervised by a Texas-based firm. Acting Director of the United States Trade and Development Agency, Thomas Hardy, said the project would support infrastructure development plan of Lagos State. Now, crude oil prices have dipped as International Energy Agency doubts OPEC's ability to successfully curtail output. A barrel of European Brent drops to $51.65 per barrel, with 45 cents coming down. For the OPEC basket, a barrel of the crude sells for $49. The oil market is seen to be slippery at this time that the U.S. pumps shale oil, different types of that, to the crude, to the market. Well, that's our package for you today on Business Nigeria. Join us another time for more insightful and detailed analysis. On behalf of the entire production crew, thank you for watching. I leave you with the figures of the exchange rate as it stands today. Bye for now.